Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why the more you tell someone what to do, the less likely they are to actually do it? It's almost as if the very act of commanding creates a wall between you and them, a wall built from resistance and silent rebellion. This is not by accident, it's human psychology. The truth is, people don't like being controlled. Deep inside, every human being values freedom. The freedom to choose, to decide, to shape their own path. And when that freedom feels threatened, they fight back, even if it's only in subtle ways. Think about it. The last time someone told you directly what to do, how did it feel? Was there a spark of irritation, maybe even the urge to push back even if you knew what they were saying was right? That is the power of human autonomy. We were not created to be ordered around like machines. We were created to think, to decide, to shape our own destiny. And this is why the people who truly inspire change, who truly influence others, are never the ones who demand obedience. They are the ones who understand the silent power of influence. Influence works differently. It doesn't shout. It doesn't command. It doesn't force. Influence whispers. It guides. It plants a seed in the heart of another person and allows them to believe the idea was their own. And because they feel ownership of that choice, they follow through with a strength that no command could ever create. This is why you must never waste your energy telling people what to do. Real power lies in shaping minds, not forcing hands. When you understand this, you unlock something extraordinary. You unlock the ability to lead without chains, to guide without resistance, to inspire without force. And the reward of mastering this skill is immense. You no longer waste your life arguing, pushing, or demanding. Instead, people begin to listen to you because they want to, not because they have to. That is the kind of influence that creates loyalty, respect, and lasting change. But here's the part most people miss. Influence is not about manipulation. It's not about tricking people into doing what you want. That kind of control is shallow and always temporary. True influence is about alignment, aligning with what people value, what they dream of, what they fear, what they crave. When you can touch those deeper layers of the human mind, you don't need to tell people what to do. They will walk in the direction you've pointed because it feels like their own path. And this is where most people fail. They think the louder they shout, the more people will listen. But the louder you shout, the more people turn away. The more you command, the more resistance you create. People don't follow orders, they follow energy. They follow authenticity. They follow those who make them feel seen, heard, and respected. If you can master this, if you can stop yourself from demanding and instead learn to inspire, you gain an invisible authority that no title, no position, and no amount of shouting can ever give you. Imagine the shift it creates in your relationships, in your work, in your life. Instead of being the person who constantly tells others what to do and gets ignored, you become the person people actually look up to, the one they come to for guidance, the one whose words echo in their minds long after you've spoken them. That's the difference between commanding and influencing. One breeds resistance, the other breeds loyalty. One creates walls, the other opens doors. And here is the deeper truth. When you stop telling people what to do, you don't just gain influence, you gain peace. Because you are no longer trying to control outcomes that are not yours to control. You are no longer draining yourself in battles against human nature. Instead, you are working with it. You are aligning with the flow of how people truly think and feel. And when you do this, influence becomes effortless. It becomes natural. People begin to follow you not because they're told, but because they feel inspired. So ask yourself, what kind of power do you want in your life? The fragile power of commands that fade as soon as they're spoken? Or the unshakable power of influence that lingers long after you leave the room? When you understand the silent power of influence, you no longer need to force. You no longer need to argue. You no longer need to demand. Your presence speaks for itself. Your energy leads the way. And people, without even realizing it, begin to move in the direction you've shown them. That is real power. That is lasting influence. And it begins the moment you decide to stop telling people what to do and instead learn how to inspire them to do it themselves. When someone feels forced, their natural instinct is to resist. It doesn't matter if the instruction is good, wise, or even necessary. The moment it feels like a command, something deep within rises up to push against it. This is the power of human freedom. People would rather make the wrong choice on their own than feel like they were stripped of the right to choose. And this truth explains why telling people what to do so often backfires. You can have the best advice, the clearest vision, the strongest conviction, but if you deliver it as an order, it will almost always meet a wall of quiet defiance. Psychologists call this phenomenon entrapment reactance. It's the inner resistance we feel when our autonomy is threatened. Think of a child who refuses to eat vegetables, not because they taste bad, but because they were forced onto the plate. Think of an adult who ignores valuable advice simply because it came in the form of a demand. That is reactance in action. And it's not immaturity. It's human nature. From the youngest child to the wisest elder, everyone values freedom of choice. Everyone wants to feel that their decisions are theirs alone. The more pressure you apply, the stronger the resistance becomes. Push someone into a corner and they won't move forward. They will fight to step back. The moment they sense control, the moment they feel the leash tighten, the desire to break free grows stronger than the desire to move in your direction. And that is why commands so often fail. They don't just miss the mark, they create the opposite effect. Instead of compliance, they ignite rebellion. Instead of trust, they spark resistance. But there is a different way. Instead of commanding, guide. Instead of telling, show. Instead of forcing, invite. The human spirit does not thrive under pressure, it thrives under choice. When people feel they are free to decide, they open their hearts. When they feel respected, they open their minds. And when they feel both, they walk with you willingly. This is the essence of true leadership, not bending people to your will, but inspiring them to align their will with yours. Respect is the foundation of this. You cannot influence someone you do not respect. And respect is not just shown through words, but through how you treat their independence. When you honor someone's ability to choose, when you make space for their decision even if it's different from yours, you gain something far more valuable than compliance. You gain trust. And trust is the currency of influence. Once people trust you, they listen differently, they absorb differently, they act differently. Think of the moments in your life when you felt truly respected. Did you not feel more open, more willing to listen, more eager to act? Respect has the power to disarm resistance. It dissolves the walls of defensiveness and replaces them with receptiveness. That is why the strongest voices are not the loudest ones, but the ones that make others feel heard before speaking. When you understand this, you realize that the most effective way to reach someone is not to dictate, but to validate. Validation does not mean agreement. You don't have to approve of every choice or support every idea. Validation means acknowledging the humanity of the person in front of you, recognizing their right to think and choose for themselves. And when you do that, you create a space where influence naturally flows. Because once a person feels respected, once they feel their voice matters, they stop resisting and start listening. And in that space of listening, your words carry weight. This is why commands fail, but conversations succeed. This is why demands fall flat, but respect creates movement. The human mind does not respond to force. It responds to understanding. When you give someone the freedom to choose, when you present your guidance as an option rather than an order, you activate their sense of ownership. And ownership changes everything. What people resist when commanded, they embrace when chosen. The shift is subtle but powerful. Instead of saying to this, you ask, what do you think about this? Instead of pushing, you invite. Instead of stripping away freedom, you offer it. And in return, you gain something commands can never achieve. Genuine commitment. Because a choice made freely is a choice defended fiercely. People stand stronger behind decisions they believe they made for themselves. So never underestimate the power of respect and choice. They are not weaknesses, they are strengths. They are not signs of passivity, they are signs of mastery. Anyone can demand, anyone can shout, anyone can try to control. But it takes wisdom to guide without forcing. It takes strength to lead without chains. And it takes vision to inspire without commands. When you tell someone directly what to do, you may think you are helping them, guiding them, even saving them from mistakes. But in truth, what you are really doing is pushing against one of the strongest forces in the human mind, the desire for independence. Every human being carries within them a need to feel in control of their own decisions. This need is not small, it is wired into us as deeply as our need to breathe. And when that control feels threatened, when some EVY tries to dictate our choices. The natural response is to resist. This is why commands rarely lead to real change. People might obey for a moment. They might even nod and follow instructions out of fear, pressure, or politeness. But deep inside, they are already pulling away. The human spirit cannot thrive in chains, even invisible ones. It does not matter whether those chains come from a boss, a partner, a parent, or a friend. When someone feels stripped of their freedom, rebellion begins to grow. And once rebellion sets in, influence is lost. It is important to understand the psychology behind this. Human beings are motivated far more by desire than by obligation. Desire moves us. Desire gives us energy, passion, and commitment. Obligation, on the other hand, is heavy. It feels forced. It weighs us down, and no one wants to carry weight that does not belong to them. So when you tell people what to do, you give them obligation. But when you inspire them to choose, you awaken desire. And desire is infinitely stronger. Think about the difference between the words "you must" and "to can." One feels like a chain, the other feels like a key. The mind reacts differently depending on how freedom is framed. If you say, "You must work harder," the natural reaction is to resist, to feel attacked or judged. But if you say, "Once you can unlock your potential if you choose to," the mind feels invited, not controlled. That invitation sparks curiosity and ownership. It plants a seed instead of throwing a command. And people are far more likely to nurture a seed they believe is theirs than one that was forced into their hands. This is why respect is so critical in the art of influence. Respect means acknowledging the other person's right to decide, their right to think, their right to choose. When people feel respected, they lower their defenses, their hearts open, their ears open, and in that openness, influence takes root. But when respect is missing, when all they hear is a command or an order, they close off, they protect themselves, they shut you out. The most powerful leaders, the ones who truly shape history, do not achieve greatness by barking orders. They achieve it by earning trust. They speak in ways that awaken something inside others. They frame ideas so that people feel part of the vision, not victims of it. They understand that leadership is not about control, but about empowerment. And the same truth applies not only to leaders, but to every one of us. In our relationships, in our work, in our daily conversations, the moment we shift from telling people what to do to inspiring them with respect and vision, everything changes. And here's the part most people overlook. Resistance is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent. A person may smile, nod, and say "'T okay" when told what to do. But inside, they are withdrawing. Inside, they are already deciding not to give their full effort. Inside, they are disconnecting from you. This silent resist. Ants is even more dangerous because it is invisible. You may think you have convinced them, but in truth, you have only created distance. That is the hidden cost of commanding instead of inspiring. You lose not only cooperation, but connection. When you choose a different path, when you approach people with respect, with vision, with patience, the dynamic changes. Instead of walls, you build bridges. Instead of rebellion, you spark willingness. And willingness is the soil where true influence grows. People are not only more open to listening, they are eager to listen because they feel seen and valued. They feel that their freedom has not been stolen, but expanded. That is the deepest secret of influence. People follow most strongly when they feel they are following themselves. So never underestimate the power of how you speak, how you frame your words, how you approach another human being's will. A single command can close a door forever, while a single, respectful invitation can open it wide. People are not machines waiting for instructions. They are souls craving recognition. They are minds craving freedom. They are hearts craving respect. When you understand this, when you stop commanding and start inspiring, your influence becomes limitless. Because in the end, the strongest way to change a person's behavior is not to demand it, but to make them want it. And once they want it, once they feel the choice is theirs, no obstacle is too great, no challenge too heavy, no resistance too strong. Their own desire will carry them further than any command ever could. Respect is the foundation of influence, because without it, words lose weight. People are not persuaded by the loudest voice in the room, they are moved by the voice that makes them feel valued. When someone feels respected, their defenses lower and their mind opens. They no longer see your words as an attack, but as guidance. This is why the psychology of respect is so powerful. It transforms how people receive you. Respect is not about agreeing with everything someone does, nor is it about surrendering your own truth. It is about recognizing the dignity of another human being and speaking to them in a way that honors that dignity. The truth is, most people are starving for respect. They walk through life constantly judged, criticized, or dismissed. Every time someone speaks to them with superiority, a part of them hardens. But the moment someone listens to them, acknowledges them, and treats them as an equal, a door opens in their heart. This door cannot be opened by force, only by understanding. And once it is open, influence becomes possible. Think about how often conflict is not about the actual issue, but about the feeling of being disrespected. A person can handle disagreement. They can handle correction. But what they cannot handle is being treated as if their perspective does not matter. Disrespect wounds the ego, and when the ego is wounded, people fight, withdraw, or shut down. Respect, on the other hand, strengthens the ego in a healthy way. It says, I see you, I hear you, you matter. And when people feel they matter, they naturally lean toward those who make them feel that way. This is why respect carries more power than authority. Authority can force compliance, but respect earns loyalty. Authority can get short-term results, but respect builds long-term relationships. Authority fades the moment the position or title disappears, but respect continues to influence even when you are no longer present. If you want your words to live beyond the moment, you must root them in respect. Respect is also contagious. When you treat people with respect, you awaken the part of them that wants to live up to that respect. They begin to act in ways that honor the value you have given them. It is a psychological trigger. When people feel valued, they strive to be worthy of that value. This is why great leaders, mentors, and even friends are remembered not for the order they gave, but for the respect they showed. It is not the command that echoes in memory, but the feeling of being seen and uplifted. If you want people to trust your words, you must first show them that you trust their humanity. If you want them to listen, you must first listen. If you want them to follow, you must first walk beside them. Respect is not weakness. It is not about surrendering power. In fact, it is the opposite. Respect is one of the greatest forms of strength because it requires humility, patience, and self-control. It is easy to bark orders. It is easy to demand. It is easy to shout. But it takes true strength to hold back your ego and speak with honor, even when you disagree. That strength is what gives your voice weight. Respect does not mean silence. It does not mean avoiding truth. You can be direct, honest, and firm while still being respectful. It is not about sugarcoating reality. It is about delivering it in a way that does not crush the other person's dignity. Words can cut, or words can heal. Respect is what makes the difference. And when people know that even your hardest truths come from a place of respect, they will accept them, even if they sting. The human heart is wired to respond to respect. Neuroscience shows that when people feel respected, their brain shifts into a state of openness and cooperation. But when they feel disrespected, their brain activates defense mechanisms. They stop listening. They prepare to fight back. This is why so many conversations fail. Not because of the content, but because of the tone. Disrespect closes the mind. Respect opens it. The way you deliver your words is often more powerful than the words themselves. So ask yourself, do you want people to resist you, or do you want them to trust you? Do you want temporary obedience, or do you want lasting influence? The answer lies in respect. If you want to move people, you must make them feel safe. If you want to inspire them, you must make them feel valued. If you want them to act, you must make them feel understood. Respect accomplishes all of this. It is the invisible key that unlocks hearts and minds. Never underestimate its power. Respect is not something small. It is everything. It is the difference between being heard and being ignored. It is the difference between being followed willingly and being followed reluctantly. It is the difference between words that fade and words that change lives. The moment you choose to lead with respect instead of ego, you step into a different kind of power. A power that does not need to shout, because it is already felt. There is a difference between telling someone what to do and inspiring them to act, and that difference is everything. Instruction may provide information, but inspiration ignites transformation. Instruction reaches the ears, but inspiration reaches the soul. When you instruct, you transfer knowledge. When you inspire, you awaken power, and that awakening is what moves people to do more than they thought possible. Not because they were told, but because something inside them was set on fire. The human mind craves meaning. It is not enough to simply know what to do. People need to feel why they should do it. Orders strip away meaning, leaving only obligation. But inspiration gives birth to meaning, and meaning turns ordinary actions into purposeful steps. A person who is told to run will tire quickly, but a person who is inspired to run toward a vision, a dream, or higher purpose will endure pain, obstacles, and doubt because they are fueled by something deeper than commands. This is why some leaders, teachers, and visionaries are remembered forever, while others fade into silence. The ones who last are those who spoke to the heart, not just the mind. They did not say, "Do this." They said, "To imagine what is possible." They painted a picture of a greater future and allowed people to see themselves inside that picture. And once a person sees themselves in a vision, they no longer need instruction. They choose to walk the path on their own. Think about the power of choice. When someone feels they are acting out of their own decision, they give more, they commit more, they stay longer. Orders can control behavior, but they cannot control commitment. Only inspiration creates true commitment because it comes from within. When you inspire, you align with someone's deepest desires, values, and hopes. And once those desires awaken, action flows naturally, without force. The truth is, instruction belongs to the surface. Inspiration belongs to the core. You can tell someone how to build a house, but only inspiration will make them want to create a home. You can tell someone how to move forward, but only inspiration will make them want to run. You can tell someone what steps to take, but only inspiration will make them keep walking when the path gets hard. This is the difference that separates shallow influence from lasting impact. Notice how people respond when they are instructed. They might follow, but often with hesitation, resistance, or minimal effort. Now notice how people respond when they are inspired. Their eyes light up, their energy rises. They give more than you ask for because they are no longer working for you. They are working for themselves, for a vision they believe in. This is the energy that instruction can never create. And here is the psychological truth. Human beings are driven by emotion far more than logic. Logic tells us what to do, but emotion is what makes us do it. You can provide all the instructions in the world, but without emotion, nothing changes. Inspiration is the bridge between logic and action because it carries emotion. It awakens passion. It stirs hope. It transforms the cold and I should into the fiery and I must. That shift is the heartbeat of motivation, and it cannot be commanded. It must be sparked. To inspire others, you must first embody what you want to awaken in them. If you want people to act with courage, show courage. If you want people to pursue excellence, embody excellence. If you want people to believe in themselves, live as though belief is unshakable. People do not follow instructions. They follow examples. They are drawn to authenticity. They are moved by what they feel is real. This is why instruction without example falls flat, but inspiration through example creates movements. Every word you speak carries energy. When your words are rooted in vision, respect, and authenticity, they carry power. People don't just hear them, they feel them. They linger in the mind, echo in the heart, and move into action. But when words are delivered as commands, they may pass through the ears but never reach the soul. The true art of influence is learning how to speak in a way that bypasses resistance and awakens belief. So never settle for being someone who merely tells others what to do. Aim to be the one whose words create momentum, whose presence sparks possibility, whose vision lifts others beyond their limits. Instruction might control someone for a moment, but inspiration can transform them for a lifetime. And when you choose to inspire instead of instruct, you stop being just a voice. They begin to carry your words within them as a guiding force long after you've left the room. This is the real measure of impact. Not how many people obeyed your commands, but how many people found their strength because of your inspiration. Not how many followed out of pressure, but how many rose because of vision. Influence without inspiration fades. Influence with inspiration becomes eternal. Silence is one of the most underestimated forces of influence. People often think that power comes from speaking, directing, and filling every space with words. But the truth is, silence can move people in ways that words never can. Silence carries weight. It creates space for reflection. It allows the other person's mind to wander, to process, and to arrive at their own conclusion. And when a conclusion feels like it was born inside them, it is held with more conviction than anything you could have forced through instruction. The human mind naturally resists pressure, but it is drawn to curiosity. Silence creates curiosity. When you stop filling every moment with commands and explanations, you give others the gift of wondering, of questioning, of discovering for themselves. This is where real influence begins, not in telling, but in guiding someone toward their own realization. And that realization is infinitely more powerful than any order because it belongs to them. Think of how silence changes the energy of a room. When someone falls quiet, people lean in. When words stop, attention rises. The pause becomes louder than the sound. In that pause, the mind begins to ask questions, and questions are what truly change people. Commands shut down questions. Silence invites them. And the moment a person starts questioning themselves, they begin a journey that no amount of instruction could have sparked. This is why those who understand influence know when to speak and when to stay silent. They know that silence is not weakness. It is strength. It is control over your own ego, a refusal to dominate every space, and a deep understanding that the most powerful lessons are not forced, but discovered. Silence is an act of respect. It tells the other person, I trust you to think. I trust you to decide. I trust you to grow. And when people feel that trust, they rise to meet it. Psychologically, silence is also a mirror. When you leave space unfilled, people project their own thoughts, fears, and desires into it. They start to hear themselves more clearly. They begin to confront their own truth. And because it came from within, it cannot be easily dismissed. When you tell someone what to do, they may reject it. But when silence leads them to realize it on their own, they cannot run from it. The voice they hear is not yours, it is theirs. That is why silence transforms. Silence also demands presence. When you are silent, you force people to pay attention not just to your words but to themselves. In the rush of constant noise, silence becomes magnetic. It stands out. It pulls focus. And in that focus, your influence grows, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you allowed people to lean into the depth of the moment. There is also power in holding back when your instinct is to speak. The ego always wants the last word, the final command, the stamp of authority. But true influence does not need to win every battle. True influence knows when to step back and let silence carry the message. Often, silence communicates more than words could ever express. Disappointment, strength, confidence, and certainty can all be delivered without a single sound. And people feel it more deeply because it bypasses their defenses and speaks directly to their emotions. Silence is not emptiness. It is a container. It holds space for reflection, for processing, for truth to rise. Those who know how to use silence wisely understand that every pause is a seed planted. That seed may take time to grow, but once it does, it becomes stronger than anything imposed from the outside. Commands may be forgotten, but the lessons people discover in silence are carried for life. This is why silence is one of the most powerful tools of influence you can ever master. It is not about controlling others. It is about guiding them to discover their own power. It is about stepping back so that they can step forward. It is about resisting the urge to dictate and instead allowing space for growth. Because growth that comes from within is lasting. Growth that is forced is temporary. The next time you feel the urge to tell someone what to do, pause. Breathe. Step into silence. Let the moment do its work. You may be surprised to see that silence will often lead them exactly where you hoped they would go without you ever having to say a word. And when they arrive there, they will believe it was their own decision. That belief is what makes it unshakable. Silence is not the absence of influence. It is the purest form of it. It does not push. It does not demand. It does not chain. It frees. It empowers. It plants the kind of conviction that no external force can uproot. That is why silence, when used with intention, is not weakness. It is mastery. True strength is never about how much control you can exert over others. True strength is about how much control you have over yourself. When you stop trying to dictate what others should do, you free yourself from the exhausting burden of managing their choices. You begin to channel that energy inward, where it matters most. The mind becomes clearer. The heart grows calmer, and your focus shifts from external battles to internal mastery. This is the moment when you rise above the noise and step into a higher state of power. People are not moved by commands, they are moved by presence. Your presence carries weight when it is rooted in discipline, calmness, and quiet confidence. A person who is in command of themselves needs no words to prove it. They don't have to tell anyone what to do. Their life itself becomes proof of what discipline, clarity, and focus can create. And this is where influence becomes real because it doesn't come from force, it comes from respect. Respect is never taken, it is always earned. It is earned through the way you carry yourself, the way you show up in the world, and the way you handle challenges. When people see consistency, when they see someone who doesn't waver under pressure, they can't help but admire it. The world is full of voices that shout, but the world pays attention to the one who stays still and unshaken. Silence speaks more loudly than orders. Self-mastery shines more brightly than demands. People are naturally drawn to those who embody control rather than those who try to impose it. That is the paradox of leadership. Those who seek control rarely gain it, but those who master themselves end up guiding others without even trying. Every time you tell someone what to do, you strip them of ownership. You place the burden of your will onto their shoulders. And no one wants to carry a weight that does not belong to them. But when you let them walk their own path, even if it means making mistakes, you give them the gift of growth. Growth doesn't come from obedience. It comes from responsibility. When someone feels that their choices are truly their own, they also feel the full weight of their outcomes. That is where transformation begins. It's not about being told, it's about discovering. And when people discover, they never forget. This is why the wisest people never rush to command. They know that words can only reach the surface, but experience reaches the soul. They understand that true teaching is not in dictating but in modeling. The one who lives with integrity teaches without aching. The one who demonstrates strength inspires without instructing. The one who embodies discipline creates a ripple that moves others without a single word. People may ignore your advice, but they cannot ignore your example. And when your example is undeniable, people will follow it by choice, not by force. Silence, when rooted in strength, is magnetic. It draws curiosity. It makes others wonder, what gives this person such calmness? What makes them so steady? What allows them to rise above the need to control? That curiosity turns into respect. Respect turns into trust. Trust turns into influence, and influence is far more powerful than control, because control can be resisted, but influence flows naturally into the heart. The world is tired of people telling it what to do. Everywhere, people are being pulled, pushed, and dictated by opinions, systems, and voices that scream for attention. But when you step back from that chaos and choose silence, discipline, and clarity, you separate yourself from the noise. You no longer add to the confusion. You become something rare. And rarity commands attention. People chase what they rarely find. They listen to what they cannot easily explain. They are drawn to what cannot be faked. And a person who masters silence, who doesn't need to tell others what to do, is impossible to ignore. This doesn't mean you stay passive. It means you act so powerfully in your own lane that people feel it without being told. You build your life in a way that speaks louder than orders ever could. Your actions show what's possible. Your discipline shows what's real. Your results show what's undeniable. When you carry that kind of energy, people don't wait for you to instruct them. They start to mirror you naturally. They want to rise to your level because your level speaks for itself. That is the essence of real influence. It is quiet, it is firm, it is unshakable. It does not scream, it does not demand, it does not dictate. It simply exists in full power, and the world bends to it. So stop wasting your breath telling others what to do. Focus instead on doing the things that prove what you believe. Build your life in such a way that your silence has more impact than another person's 1,000 words. Because when you stop telling people what to do and start showing them who you are, you will discover that the most powerful voice is not the one that speaks the loudest, but the one that doesn't need to speak at all. The deepest power you will ever hold is the ability to govern yourself. When you no longer seek to control the decisions of others, all that energy turns inward, fueling your growth, sharpening your mind, and strengthening your spirit. The world notices when someone stands in full command of themselves. It is not loud, it is not boastful, it is not about proving anything. It is quiet, yet undeniable. That kind of power cannot be questioned because it is lived, not spoken. The person who has mastered self-discipline Pline does not need to say, do this or don't do that. Their very presence becomes a mirror that challenges others to rise. When you tell people what to do, you create resistance. Human nature resists control because deep inside every person is the desire to choose. The moment you strip away choice, you strip away dignity. And dignity is what makes people feel alive, what makes them feel human. If you truly want to impact lives, you must give people space to keep their dignity intact. You must inspire them to choose on their own, not because you told them, but because they saw something in you that awakened their own sense of direction. That is influence at its highest level, and influence always outlasts control. Control is temporary. It may force obedience in the moment, but it collapses the moment you leave. Influence is eternal. It outlives you, it multiplies without your effort, and it plants itself in the minds and hearts of people long after you are gone. That is why the greatest leaders in history rarely demanded, they demonstrated. They embodied what they wanted others to see. They became a living standard of discipline, resilience, and clarity. And because of that, they left legacies, not orders. When you live in such a way that your results speak for themselves, no one can ignore it. People may reject your words, but they cannot deny your reality. They cannot argue with consistency. They cannot discredit the evidence of a life built with strength and self-control. That is why your greatest message is not in what you tell others, but in how you carry yourself. Every day you are teaching without words. Every action is a lesson. Every choice is a statement. And the more disciplined those choices are, the louder your silent message becomes. Think about the weight of silence. Silence can be uncomfortable because it leaves space for reflection. In silence, people are forced to confront their own choices, their own excuses, their own truth. This is why a silence, when combined with strength, is magnetic. It pulls people inward. It makes them stop. It awakens the mind. And in that moment of stillness, people do not hear your orders, they hear their own conscience. That is where transformation truly begins, not when you tell them what to do, but when they finally decide for themselves who they must become. You don't need to direct the lives of others. You need to master your own life so fully that it becomes impossible for them not to notice. You must rise to a point where your energy speaks before you do, where your actions set the tone before your voice enters the room. This is how influence spreads. Not through commands, but through example. Not through orders, but through embodiment. The strongest person is not the one who can control others, but the one who can remain unshaken, no matter what others choose to do. Your task is not to control, it is to elevate. To elevate, you must embody the very qualities others are searching for. You must show what discipline looks like, what courage feels like, what clarity creates. When you embody this, you give others a vision. And a vision is far more powerful than an order. An order demands action. A vision awakens desire. When people are moved by desire, their actions have energy, passion, and endurance. When they are moved by orders, their actions fade the moment the order ends. This is why the world needs fewer people telling others what to do, and more people who live in such a way that others want to rise on their own. Influence begins with you. It begins with your ability to stay consistent when it's hard, to stay focused when distractions surround you, to stay disciplined when temptation pulls at you. Each time you win those internal battles, you become stronger. And that strength is not hidden, it radiates. People can see it, feel it, and sense it. That is the true language of leadership. Never underestimate the power of showing instead of telling. A single example, ca. And move more deeply than 1,000 instructions. A single act of integrity can change more lives than years of orders. People may not remember what you said, but they will never forget how your presence made them feel. And when your presence carries the weight of discipline, calmness, and inner strength, you inspire change without a single word. So choose wisely where you place your energy. Spend it on building yourself, not controlling others. Spend it on sharpening your discipline, not giving directions. Spend it on mastering your own path, not dictating someone else's. Because at the end of the day, the people who inspire the most are not the ones who said the most, but the ones who live the most authentically. Control fades, but influence endures. And when you understand this, you will realize that you never need to tell people what to do because your life will speak more powerfully than your words ever could. There is a strength that goes beyond words, a force that makes people stop and pay attention without being told. That force is respect. Respect is not demanded, it is earned. It is not forced. It is cultivated. People do not give their respect to those who bark orders or impose control. They give it to those who carry themselves with integrity, with calm authority, and with a kind of inner certainty that cannot be shaken. When you operate from respect, you move people without having to push them. You create a bond, an invisible connection that makes others want to listen, not because you commanded them, but because they trust you. The human mind is wired to resist anything that threatens its sense of freedom, but it is equally wired to follow those it respects. Respect lowers defenses. It creates openness. It softens the walls people build around themselves. Without respect, words become noise. With respect, even silence becomes powerful. That is why the most effective form of influence begins with how you treat others, not with what you tell them. If people feel unseen or belittled, they will fight you, even if you're right. But if they feel valued and understood, they will lean in, they will listen, and they will willingly walk with you. Respect is not about flattery. It is not about pretending to agree with everyone. It is about acknowledging the dignity of another human being. Every person longs to be recognized, to be heard, to be taken seriously. When you give someone that gift, you shift their mindset from resistance to receptiveness. You create the conditions for influence to take root. A simple acknowledgement of someone's perspective, even if you disagree, can transform an adversary into an ally. This is the psychology of influence. People open themselves to those who respect them because respect communicates one thing above all. It says, "But you matter." And when someone feels that they matter, they become willing to hear, to consider, and to follow. Think about the people you naturally listen to in your own life. They are not the ones who constantly dictate or control. They are the ones you know will speak truth with care. They are the ones who don't dismiss you but challenge you with dignity. Their words land deeply because they are built on a foundation of mutual respect. This is the path to lasting influence, not through power, not through force, but through the quiet strength of treating others with the dignity you would want for yourself. When you embody respect, you also teach by example. You show people how they should treat you and how they should treat others. Respect is contagious. It ripples outward, shifting the atmosphere around you. A respectful presence calms storms, diffuses tension, and inspires cooperation. People are far more willing to rise to a higher standard when they feel respected than when they feel ordered. Respect does not diminish authority. It enhances it. The leader who respects others is the leader who commands loyalty without demanding it. Respect also builds trust, and TR is the deepest foundation of influence. Without trust, even the most powerful words crumble. But with trust, even the smallest gesture carries weight. When people trust you, they don't need constant instructions. They will follow your lead because they believe in your intention. They know that you see them, that you value them, and that your influence is not rooted in control but in genuine regard for their growth. This is why respect is not optional. It is essential. It is the soil in which influence grows. You must ask yourself, do your words strip away dignity, or do they honor it? Do your actions make others feel small, or do they remind them of their worth? The answer to these questions determines whether your presence will repel or attract, whether your influence will fade or endure. People do not follow rules for long, but they will follow those they respect for a lifetime. Respect has the power to turn resistance into cooperation, silence into dialogue, strangers into ally. It builds bridges where commands build walls. It unlocks the doors of the heart where force only tightens the locks. And the beauty of respect is that it costs nothing, yet it creates everything. A word spoken with respect has more power than 1,000 shouted commands. A gesture of respect can shift an entire atmosphere in a way that orders never can. The truth is, respect is not weakness. Speak with respect. Show with your actions. Influence will follow naturally. Respect is the key that unlocks hearts, and once a heart is open, the mind will follow. Respect opens the door, but what truly moves people through it is inspiration. Commands tell someone what path to take, but inspiration makes them want to walk it on their own. And the difference between the two is monumental. When you inspire, you awaken something deep inside a person that already belongs to them. Their own hunger, their own drive, their own inner vision. This is why inspiration lasts longer than any order. Orders end when the voice goes silent. Inspiration keeps echoing in the mind long after the words are gone. Inspiration is born from vision. It is the ability to show people not just what they should do, but why it matters. It paints a picture of possibility so vivid that they cannot help but imagine themselves in it. It is not about telling them to rise. It is about showing them what life looks like at a higher level, so they begin to crave it. This craving is the most powerful motivator. Nobody fights for what they are told to fight for. People fight with fire when they see meaning, when they feel purpose, when they can taste what is waiting for them on the other side. Instruction demands compliance, but inspiration fuels desire. Desire is far stronger than discipline alone. A person who acts out of discipline may keep moving for a time, but a person who acts out of desire will climb mountains, break limits, and refuse to quit because their heart is on fire. That fire cannot be commanded. It can only be lit. And when it's lit, it spreads. This is how movements are born. This is how generations are changed. Not because someone demanded obedience, but because someone dared to inspire. People are not waiting for more rules. They are waiting for more vision. They are waiting to be reminded of what they are capable of. They are waiting to see someone who believes so deeply in their own path that it makes them believe in theirs. Inspiration is contagious. It spreads from one life to another, igniting sparks that become flames. When you inspire someone, they don't just change in that moment. They carry that energy into everything they do, and they pass it on to others. One act of inspiration can ripple through countless lives. Think about the times you felt truly moved. It wasn't when someone barked orders at you or tried to force you into their mold. It was when someone's words or actions awakened something inside you that was already there but hidden. Inspiration doesn't add something new. It awakens what was asleep. It reminds people of the strength they already have, the dreams they already hold, the potential they have always carried. That is why inspiration feels so personal. It feels like it belongs to you, not to the person who spoke it. And this is the beauty of it. Inspiration respects free will. It does not chain people, it frees them. It doesn't pressure them, it empowers them. It doesn't steal choice, it restores it. That is why inspiration is the opposite of control. Control shrinks people, but inspiration expands them. Control makes people doubt themselves, but inspiration makes them trust themselves again. Control limits, but inspiration unleashes. To inspire, you do not need to be perfect, you simply need to be authentic.